break the hold of being born and raised as a second class citizen, Spencer makes his intentions clear and he preps for other government agencies to swoop in as Faraday's legend becomes a bit more known amongst the different agencies. To start off, we gotta talk about how Justin is dealing with her daughter and her father coming over to London. In a way, the move is kind of complicated for Justin since with Josiah they moved around so much that one of the things that Justin really wanted for Molly was to have stability and be rooted in some place. But at this point, Justin knows that an opportunity like this to really get back into research isn't going to come again. Never mind with the way that Faraday talks, this could be life or death for the whole human species. So what choice does she have but to move her family over to London rather than try to continue to be okay with her dad raising Molly out far in the western part of the United States while she is off doing these great things and worrying about her daughter throughout the night. Now, as for how Molly's handling the transition, or even not Justin, or even Josiah, Molly is a child, so she's kind of upset about leaving her childhood home, but at the same time, new opportunities aren't the most terrible thing. The main issue that Molly may have is the one that Josiah is seemingly having, which is that whatever Faraday did to take away all of his pains and ailments, it might be wearing off, or at least it seems something is wrong with Josiah, which led to him kind of blanking out in the middle of the street, and with that, so a red flag gets raised. While Justin is away, Faraday is starting the project, and it shows that he's a terrible manager. One of the top things that Faraday has an issue with is that he was raised to be a drone, not an adept. And when it comes to drones, they're given directions, instructions, a task, and they're expected to do that task. Never mind needing to go sleep, never mind bathroom and all that. Drones don't do that. Drones get the job done, and because Faraday has to deal with civil rights, he has to deal with working conditions and stuff like that, it boggles his mind, especially with his team. And add in the fact that he's working with women who he thinks some of the issues deal with having their menses, and it makes it so that Hatch has to step in because the project is about to be over, not because it got stuck or because of something can't be scientifically done, but because Faraday has no human management skills. Though, all things considered, Spencer was ready to shut down the project just because between the issue of not knowing whether or not Faraday is trying to commit genocide with this project, on top of Drew warning him that other agencies are getting interested, Spencer recognizes that it might be better to Spencer thought it might be better to take Faraday down now rather than wait until he finishes what he started and maybe it's too late. But Spencer doesn't decide to pull the trigger just yet. Instead, he, with his associate, decides to watch Faraday, especially because Faraday kind of hits a bit of a snag. He looks over the 10th patent and he can't figure out how to translate that to human, or rather Earth math. And with that, he gets stuck in a rut that kind of frazzles him, and it leads to him not sleeping, him not bathing, him going off on Molly when he interacts with her, and Justin is just at the point of, as much as she wants to get this work done, she also recognizes that there's something about Faraday that is potentially a liability in all this. At least that is until Faraday hallucinates and meets this woman named Watt, who speaks of Thomas Newton and also Faraday's secrets in a way that makes her seem like a real person. Yet we learn she is just the hallucination who, I guess, is made to have Faraday tap into his adept side. Because the way Watt explains it, Faraday's planet and Earth past each other, and the people who are known as drones, those are the people who are native to Faraday's planet, and adepts who are similar to humanity, they are not foreign invaders, but I forgot how they put it, but basically adepts are like colonizers. And because of how they are, they made a caste system, one in which when people reach maturity, You were either made into an adept or a drone, and based off of what we've seen thus far, there's a good need to question if this is very much like South Africa in the apartheid times, where if you was a son's skin color, if you was a son's skin color, you were made into a drone. If you was another skin color, you were made into adept, and it was seen as upper society. But again, it's not an Earth thing over in Faraday's planet, so it may not be our thing. It could just be straight up whatever testing they did. That's what determined everything. But when it comes to Watt or even Faraday, they don't go into the details. All that matters is Faraday, after Watt kind of after Watt challenges him to think differently, he starts to adapt. He starts to adapt to thinking differently, and it allows him to see what Tom's going to want him to see. And with that, now he just needs to work with Justin so that he doesn't just have the casing for this energy power thing, but he also has the material, since what Thomas Newton was using back 20, 30 years ago is no longer plentiful. So now Justin has to come up with something new using hydrogen amongst other things in order to power this cell. The first highlight is just us getting to see a lot of Anthea for after watching the movie version of The Man Who Fell to Earth, which I don't really recommend. You don't really get to see much of Anthea in that. You don't really see much of Anthea before this episode, but in this one you see what the planet looks like, these rings outside of it. You get to see more of what the sky looks like, what the land looks like, what the homes possibly look like, and with that you get a real sense of there being some sort of world building put into Anthea. Now, with us also watching Faraday leave his planet this episode, it isn't clear if we're going to visit Anthea again, but at the very least now the planet seems to be more than just a memory or just a story told about. It's an actual place, at least it feels like an actual place. The next highlight is just the process of watching Faraday become human. As noted, the way it seems, humanity, aka adepts, found their way to Anthea once Anthea and Earth passed by close enough to perhaps exchange something, but not to clash with each other. It's kind of complicated in a way that I am not able to explain, but it makes sense the way that they put it. But either way, it's an interesting thing to watch Faraday go from having a drone mindset of just being given orders and following them to having to think critically, think imaginatively, and really learn how to adapt to the situation, especially when he's frustrated or else he's confused or he kind of feels like he lacks purpose. It pushes you in a way to understand that when it comes to the arts and the sciences, what separates them from other people, or even mathematicians that is that a lot of people just go based off of what's been done already. That's the way it's always been done. That's the way we're going to do it. And then people like the adepts and what Faraday's becoming who decide there are different ways to do this. There's better ways to do this. And I could either use what has been done as a blueprint or recognize that it's long been obsolete, but you didn't have the ability or desire to challenge it. And with that in mind, it does make you wonder, as Faraday becomes a person who we saw in episode 1, what challenges is he going to have internally and with other people as he evolves into this new person? Never mind if he has issues like Thomas did in terms of, leaving his wife and family behind and becoming somebody new as an Earthling, and what kind of conflicts that bring. Because the way that this show's kind of pushing it, it does make it seem that Molly is hinting that maybe Faraday and Justin could become a thing. I'm not saying it's a definite because I don't know if Justin's really ready to date, much less date someone like Faraday, but you never know. The whole thing I think might be the most interesting right now is just trying to figure out when it comes to Faraday's evolution, what snags is he going to hit on the way there, and when it comes to having his coming of age moment, is it just going to be when it comes to the science and the professional, or would also come from his personal life as well? When it comes to the on the fence topic, our main issue is just this story feels like it's meandering in a way that it's not recognizing that it's a limited series. While it's nice to see Mary Lou, at the same time, Mary Lou didn't really offer much besides a sense of nostalgia for those who saw the movie. While it's good to have Justin's family here in terms of Josiah and Molly and also knowing what happened to Molly's dad, at the same time, it kind of becomes a question of are they adding much to this show or are they just even better, probably better say it's the question of are they adding much to this show, to her character, or just adding to the screen time so that this can be close to an hour-long drama. And with that in mind, it just makes me wonder, while we are getting to the point where you can see how Faraday goes from this kind of like drone alien who's just really like task-based to becoming the man we saw in episode 1, in terms of everyone else, we don't know what their trajectory is or where they're going to end at. And honestly, I don't feel like the show's doing a whole lot to build up any type of hype to see Justin finish this project and perhaps redeem herself. Josiah either going back to where he was, where he was sickly and possibly dying soon, or even when it comes to Hatch and Edie, even being that invested anymore, whether or not their relationship may heal, whether the company may return to prominence or any of that. I just think that between pacing and lack of hype for anybody but Faraday, this show is starting to get a little bit, inconsistent in a way. What The Man Who Fell to Earth reminds you is that there should be a middle ground when you're watching something. Not everything should be in a dichotomy where it has to either be accolades worthy, alters the genre and what precedents it sets, or become a flagship for its network. But at the same time, just because it doesn't fit a mold or doesn't feel like it's pushing things forward, that doesn't mean it's a terrible show or movie. And with that, you kind of have The Man Who Fell to Earth, where you recognize there's a lot of good things going on. It has good actors as part of it, and their performances are good. It's just sometimes the writing and everything, it feels like it wants to tap into the movie version of kind of being a lot of nothing, though it's still kind of going somewhere, but you have to really like pay attention so that you can kind of hush out the noise. But with this being a limited series, you kind of think, okay, limited series have a certain, between HBO and Netflix, limited series have this certain expectation that they're supposed to be really good because they don't have a bunch of time to waste or time to fix things in the second season. But as The Man Who Fell to Earth shows, limited seasons don't need to be set to such a standard. Sometimes, like a lot of shows, movies, music, and all that, it's not about being profound and like this greatest thing. It's just about entertainment. And at this point, I feel like that's what The Man Who Fell to Earth is supposed to be. Just an entertaining story about an alien who comes to Earth trying to save its people, a woman who's trying to redeem herself, and the issues of a government agency with this crazy dude named Spencer, alongside this family who got a lot of issues, being obstacles in their way to try to save humanity and also Faraday's people.